Sure. My name is Rebecca Saldana. I'm state senator of the 37th Legislative District, and my pronouns are she, or they. Yeah, so my district is the 37th, and it encompasses a lot of our historically redlined communities in South Seattle. It incorporates Central District, International Chinatown, Rainier Valley, which includes many neighborhoods, and unincorporated King County, which is known as Skyway. And my district is one where we have historically had a lot more transit dependent neighbors because of lower incomes, but also because we have had our workhorse bus rides, the number 7, the 107, the 36, are a few that we have had in our district for a long time. And we were a neighborhood that first got light rail. And that light rail was, through SeaTac, from SeaTac down to the convention center. And our community had advocates on both sides about having the light rail come through our neighborhoods on our Martin Luther King Way, and also a lot of contention about whether it was going to be at grade or underground. Ended up being at grade, which allows for a lot of visibility of our small businesses and the diversity of our communities, but also creates a additional challenge of the interface between the light rail at grade, pedestrians and bicyclists and drivers, and has been a real issue for our community around safety. We also are, because we're a historic red line community, what that means is we had the I-5 go through our International Chinatown district and really disrupt, and continues to be an infrastructure that, while it makes easy access onto I-90 or an I-5 into our neighborhoods, it also, continues to be a challenge in terms of building connected communities. Lastly, we also are surrounded by 3 airports. SeaTac Airport, a lot of their traffic goes overhead, as well as the King County Airport and the Boeing Airport. So we have lots of transit. We have a community that is one of the most diverse historically, and continues to pride ourselves on being a place where we invite all neighbors to be able to live here. We have very wealthy neighborhoods, as well as a lot of apartments, Section 8, and our historic public housing communities. We have 3 of them in our neighborhoods. I have worked on transit equity and environmental justice for most of my career, and had been working as a community person before I became a state senator, making sure that we didn't have bus cuts back many years ago, and so fought to be able to retain our buses and to make sure that alignments actually work for elders, because we also have a lot of hills and rainy and dark days, and making sure that it works for our youth to be able to get to not only to school, but to be able to get to their after school clubs, their internships, their jobs. And so when the first organizing happened, I was really excited to participate. And this last year I participated as well. I mean, so the gap is being able to go from one community to another. So I live in South Seattle, but one of my kids is part of a Mexican folkloric dance, or both of them are, but one was the one that was going to practice, and that's in Burien. And so being able to get from South Seattle to South King County communities without having to go through downtown still is a challenge, and requires multiple rides, and being able to make sure those line up. I know that for my partner, his big challenge always is that he works late, and in order to get the light rail and get the last 107, because the 107 only goes to certain hours, he often finds that the alignment's just not right. So you get off the last light rail, you get off light rail, but you always often miss that last 107. And so then you end up stuck, down in Rainier Beach, and either have to walk a couple miles, or, hopefully you have a partner or someone that's able to pick you up. So those have been challenges, and continue to, even as we have in Washington or in King County, have been able to expand the VIA program, which is supposed to help kind of with that gap with neighborhoods that don't have as much regular transit going through it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important for us to stay connected with our communities and recognize that over 25% of our residents in Washington cannot or do not drive. Um, and and so I really have gotten organized by both the grandmothers in my district as well as the people that are visually impaired or have other disabilities because we have to make sure that people have a safe way to get from point A to point B. And a lot of times, what was missing is infrastructure, whether that's sidewalks or lighting, and or just maintenance because we have sidewalks, but in Seattle, especially now, you have leaves and rain and gutters that are not being filled. So even once you build that infrastructure, that very importance of maintenance and preservation and being able to make sure that we're thinking about everyone so that we all can safely get where we need to go and be able to make those connections. Yeah, I think it's so many of us come with our own lived experiences and that's really important. And it's very important that we make sure that we actually take time to put ourselves in the shoes of our constituents because democratic governments are only as strong as they're able to really meet the needs of our most vulnerable in our communities. And so participating in Week Without Driving, I think really helps us all reflect about how are we making sure that our budgets, especially our transportation infrastructure investments, are really meeting the needs for all Washingtonians to be able to access economic opportunities and critical services and need and services and make those connections in communities because that's what makes us strong. That's critical for our democracy and you really pause and get to reflect and think about both how lucky you are to live in the state of Washington and accountable we need to be to make sure that we don't take that for granted. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, especially I'll say elected officials, um, want to really make sure that we're doing, like if we're going to do something, we want to do it well. And so I think a lot of people may hesitate to participate in a week without driving because they recognize, in order to be a representative, one of the things that often comes up for most of us is that you need to have access to a vehicle or you need to have access to a lot of money to be able to make sure you're accessible to your constituents, you're able to get and meet them where they're at. And so I think a lot of people may hesitate in participating. And I think for me, well, obviously I talk with the organizers and know that really what they want is engagement. They want that connection. And so even if you're only able to do it for an afternoon or a day or make those adjustments or calculate how much it would cost you to be able to make all your meetings and meet all your responsibilities if you had an eye impairment or vision impairment or were traveling by wheelchair and or you just did not have the funds or because you care about the environment and you want to make that change, that it does require slowing down. And I think that's a big part of inclusive design and policy too, is sometimes what we need to do is slow down, gather more information so that more of us can move together.